It would be fair to say that this year hasn't been the best for cinema, or as much as the other forms of artistic expressions. While they have been flourishing or moving in an upward trajectory ever since the slump created by the pandemic years, there has been a decline in terms of quality in the film industry, especially from the previous year, with a great deal of titles which failed to live up to the expectations that they themselves generated via immense promotions. Marketing being prioritized over the more vital aspects that forms the foundation of a project. There was also an absence of films that weren't well known but completely surprised me with its narrative or technical prowess. Overall, it simply has been quite of a dull year when it comes to films. But that isn't to say there aren't any which are worth celebrating both on the commercial and independent sectors. Those select titles act as the saving grace for this medium. However, while the Western cinema struggled to accomplish anything substantial, other parts of the world and different cultures yielded some of the better works. While there is an abundance of films that can be chosen in here, I would like to focus on the output of South Asia or Indian subcontinent, such as the Bangladeshi mystery drama, Hawa. The concept, along with the location alone, is incredibly enticing. And on top of that, it is executed in such a proficient manner that it demands more attention. Keeping the production value aside, it has one of the better acting performances of the year and a vital message behind it that is conveyed by using myths and beliefs that bounds or distances us from more progressive ideas. However, there is another film that deserved so much, not only in the international stage, but the regional locations where it originated from. There is an urgency and a dire need for such works, no matter how difficult it might be for the masses. Saim Sadiq's debut feature-length film Joyland explores multiple lives from a Pakistani family that is riddled with conservative ideals, effortlessly capturing almost every aspect of a typical household from South Asia. And that is an essential factor one has to keep in mind while judging it and what it represents. In a way, it is an amalgamation of how societies under these regions functions. This provides the film with the ability to resonate with millions of people, and possesses a sense of universality with how much it tries to cover in a short amount of time. And it does that by using different age groups who are in varying stages in their lives or relationships to cover the vastness of human life. There is the youngest son of the family who basically functions as a house husband, and he is really proficient at taking care or assisting his sister-in-law in the completion of various errands. Apart from showing signs of not being physically imposing, he doesn't have the usual masculine traits that are associated with adult men. Rather than retaining the toxic side of it, he's actually loving and understanding in nature. While these are appreciated by certain family members, majority of them would still prefer if he fit the typical archetype of a working man. But when he gets the job of being a background dancer in a theater, he doesn't reveal the actuality of his profession to them out of the fear of being judged or becoming a disappointment in their eyes. All these little details about him allows him to inadvertently break the mold of what is considered to be a man under that context. He goes out of his way to defend his wife and her right to work in order to lead a fulfilling life, even if it means that he has to go against his entire family, or more so his father, whom he's deathly afraid of. Something even his colleagues use to make fun of him, or his relationship with the transgender woman, taunting and demeaning both of them as a human being and their liberty to privacy as to how they choose to conduct their lives. Even though he adores and cares about his wife, he's a closeted gay man who can never truly connect with her. So, when she reveals that he is going to become a father, the expression isn't entirely joyous. There is a sense of despair between them, as both of them are going through a difficult stage in their lives. His wife was always the stronger one between them, both mentally and physically. An independent individual who takes control of her agency until she is forced to stay at home in her husband's absence. Even though she doesn't openly accept it, she complies as there isn't any other viable option. accommodating her sister-in-law in laborious tasks, whose children obstruct her relationship with her husband and construct a barrier between them, adding another hurdle in their day-to-day existence. Still, she tries her best to mirror his affectionate way of being, reacting in a positive manner without any judgments when he reveals about him working for a transgender woman. Envious about his newfound freedom, yes, but she doesn't let that overpower her actually being considerate and interested in his work. There is an innate and constant looming sadness in her life, something most women have to accept or learn to do so from a young age, like the notion of girls not being allowed to truly enjoy themselves in a beach because that will wet their clothes. As with most restrictions that they have to face, the core issue lies with how men view them. A change in their mentality is never going to be the course of action as long as they can control women. Right from the beginning, it is made apparent that she doesn't want to have a child. So, when she mistakenly gets impregnated, she tries to inflict as much damage to her unborn baby as she can, who happens to be a boy, and that alone adds even more pressure onto her, becoming an unfortunate burden that is bound to imprison her for unforeseen amount of time. However, even when she takes major steps to run away, she can't make herself to do it, revealing the extent of psychological authority she suffers from, which even governs how women deal with their own bodies. She isn't sexually satisfied by her husband, but self-stimulation isn't a justifiable alternative for her. In such scenarios, sex serves a purpose. There is no room for pleasure. The irony being, the same body parts that makes childbirth and its nourishment such a miracle phenomena is used to sexualize, objectify, and shame them. From sacred to a sin. The moment they use them in ways that pleases them, they are shunned from society. To keep them distant from that, they are reinforced with hollow praises like the pregnancy glow, or encouraged to bear another child as if it isn't already getting quite crowded in there, or how they are always left alone to raise them. So it is fitting that she tries to find ways to have a miscarriage. Some family members suspect it and even try to stop it, but they don't succeed in saving her life. No one can truly comprehend the mental turmoil one has to go through to consider that path as a way out and be the ones to experience the aftermath. They struggle to fathom her action and question her mental state, which they themselves influenced until her freedom of choice was strangled and left her completely hopeless. Although her husband tries to defend her honor, it is his sister-in-law who lets it all out, questioning the civility that her husband demands by asking her to be quiet when that was killed along with the unborn child when their mother was denied of her bodily autonomy. And her reaction makes sense too, as she is the result of what that system entails. After all, the film begins with her going into labor as she fails to provide the family with a son, another child added to the trio of failed conceptions. In general, she embodied the ideal older sister figure in her life, and even though she suffered from certain dated notions that were deeply ingrained in her, she never forced them onto her to change her in ways that didn't align with her lifestyle. There is an absence of any controlling nature, as she too is an educated woman who was compelled to let go of her professional aspirations for the sake of her family's well-being and growth. Hence, she is the one who stood for her after her death and opposed the ones who can't or don't even try to grasp her unfortunate reality but simply defame her as a person and mother. This is particularly evident from the male side of the family, like her father-in-law. As it tends to happen in recent times, bigotry has become more subtle and indirect in fashion, making it harder to be discernible, let alone eradicated or openly questioned, so there can be a possibility for a change. Being the elder of the family, he dictates the direction where the family is heading towards, even if he doesn't financially contribute at all, which can be seen in the scene regarding the youngest wife's working situation. He doesn't directly question it, but brings forth how they've always allowed her to work, even though there are obvious signs of him monitoring her whereabouts, or how he would rather want her to act or function as a traditional housewife. He has the usual orthodox views in life, like being wary of family's reputation in their society. But this gets challenged through a widow from their neighborhood who regularly visits them. Being another lonely and neglected woman, she is willing to take care of him in the absence of his children. They deserve their freedom, and similarly, he requires additional attention. But he can't allow her to stay with him to tend to his needs without being judged or face the societal repercussions that doesn't even allow them to lead a platonic relationship. For him, the pressure that comes with it outweighs his necessities. He can't or won't fight it. But she doesn't even have the privilege to choose for her own and distance herself from her negligent family, who are simply trying to restrict her to the confinements of their house and expect her to accept it. Her existence or prosperity isn't even taken into consideration because to them, she's just an useless old woman. This is the outcome of a system that favors one over the other. There is no winner in such scenarios, and all of their growth is bound to get hampered. Traits like acceptance and vulnerability gets suffocated, something that is vital for a functioning family. This births a need for secrecy and resentment amongst them, fueled by the lack of fondness or emotional support in their personal endeavors. Although it is ultimately about the core family group and how prominent or subtle issues affects them, it transforms into something special with the introduction of the transgender woman, as we get to experience her day-to-day difficulties after the man accepts to work under her. He was quickly transfixed by her charming and determined personality, something that she had to build because there is an underlying disparity in the treatment that she has to deal with when compared with other performers, from the audience, production team, and members from her own dance group, creating unnecessary hindrances or excuses, even refusing to cooperate with her requests, using her sexuality to ridicule her at every step, and forcing her to compromise under such desperate circumstances and work under harsh environment where she basically gets assaulted. However, the issue is immensely vast than that and affects her way of living, where them breaking trifling differences is met with cruel comments of them simply exercising it for attention or deliberately being obscene. All this bitterness and her friend getting killed makes her quite selfish with her mannerisms. She isn't as hopeful as other individuals from her community or active in their protests. But when the moments arise, she isn't afraid to defend herself or others from needless abuse. Although the introduction of the man in her life brings a positive change, both of them are quite uncertain and nervous about it, as it leads to a tumultuous and feeble relation where they get caught in a crossroad. Mainly for her, as she doesn't want to offer what he desires from her, no matter how difficult the separation might be for them. For her, the vital surgeries isn't just a wish, but a step that is going to make her feel more valid and secure with her sexuality. So until she saves enough funds for it, she is bound to work in that theater as a dancer for men who frown that profession, but their impulses makes them overlook it. They might not be able to accept her for who she is, but their lust-consumed mind can make exceptions. Unlike in her life, the aforementioned family's concerns more than often can be valid, but their solution isn't. However, they can't be singled out and blamed for every event that transpires in here. It is simply larger than them and can't be easily handled. But what's more disheartening is that, much like it happens all over the world, it took the death of a person for them, or at least certain individuals, to realize or visualize how dreadful they made another human being's life. There is a deep pain in that reality.
ठीक हो?
हाँ.
मजा आया?
केक अच्छा था. केक अच्छा था.
है ना? 70 साल। मैं सोच रहा था हम कैसे लगेंगे 70 साल के हो गए।
पता नहीं।
थक गई होगी ना। मैं भी। मैं सोने लगा। आ रही हो?
हाँ जाओ, मैं आ रही हूँ।